and specifically for so-called novel genomic techniques. The co-decision process is in full swing. Actually, both the Parliament and the Council seems to be willing to proceed at an unprecedented speed in terms of negotiations. We have the Spanish presidency, which wants to attempt to secure a general approach at the Agriculture Council that will take place on the 10th and 11th of December. But before that, they have technical meetings. There is the final working group taking place tomorrow on the 1st of December. And there will be a meeting of the SCA in the Agri Council on the 4th. And we believe a meeting of a COREPER on the 6th of December as well. So the negotiations are really happening now. As we speak, there is also a meeting of a shadow rapporteur in the European Parliament this morning in the Environment Committee. And the ambition of a rapporteur from the EPP group, Ms. Jessica Pulfard, is to have first a vote in the Agri Committee in the opinion on the week of 11th of December, then a vote in the lead committee, in the Environment Committee on the 11th of January, and then just the week after, a vote in the plenary as well. So part of a policymaker seems to be willing to rush these decisions, even though it will have quite unprecedented consequences for the whole European food sector, not only the organic movement as well. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers this morning. They will all make a short statement, and then we will open the floor for questions. Maybe some housekeeping before. Please let your camera on. It's nicer for everybody. The press conference will be recorded, the statements from the speakers, but not the questions afterwards as well. Of course, this is a press conference, so only journalists will be allowed to ask questions. Please, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. We'll give you the floor. You will be able to ask the question. Please introduce yourself and the journal you're working for. And so we will have 3 speakers this morning. First of all, we will hear from Jan Plagge. Jan Plagge is the president of IFOAM Organics Europe and also the president of Bioland in Germany. Then we will hear from Bernard Lignon. Bernard Lignon is a member of the board of IFOAM Organics Europe and is representing Synabio, which is the trade union for organic processors in France. And we will also hear from Angelika Hilbeck. Angelika Hilbeck is a scientist. She's an entomologist from ETH in Zurich. She's a worldwide renowned expert on biosafety, but she's also the co-founder and the board member of ANSWER, which is the European Network of Scientists for Social and Environmental Responsibility. And she's one of the signatories of a letter of more than 70 scientists about the proposal of the commissions on NGTs. So without further ado, I would give the floor now to Jan Plagge.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eric, and thank you to all for your huge interest in this crucial and very intensive phase on a file which was discussed very much in Brussels to be connected to other files in the Farm to Fork strategy, in the Green Deal. And you remember probably the discussion in the last summer that there were made deals between the Commission and different groups of member states and groups in the European Parliament to connect the sustainable use of pesticide regulation and other files of the Green Deal with a deregulation of the NGTs. And so first, it's quite interesting that it seems that just this last file of deregulation of NGTs will last for a very high-speed political process in Brussels, while the other files are slowed down or are voted down, like the sustainable use of pesticide regulation in the European Parliament. So this makes this discussion in the next days and the votes in the Parliament or in the Council so political relevant, because if at the end of the day from the whole farm to fork strategy files, which should be finalized or moved on to reduce the use of pesticide or to come closer to the goal of 25% organic managed land in the European Union. So the last file which is progressed in this mandate is the regulation of NGTs, and it's highly relevant for citizens, for member states, and especially for business sectors like organic. The organic sector has been very clear in our demand to keep a fair freedom of choice for breeders, farmers, and consumers. And in that sense, it's crucial to keep the organic production processes GMO-free, including GMOs derived from NGTs, so-called NGTs. And I inform you that an overwhelming majority of 97% of the whole European organic movement has confirmed this, latest in June at our General Assembly 2023. So these are the common voices from breeding, farming, processing, trade, retail, science, advisory, certifying sector, and many more stakeholders around the organic movement across Europe. And to make a new regulation against all these people and business operators would discuss long and vote in democratic procedures to make a regulation against all these decisions is not a good choice. We are now looking to policymakers to respect and support this needs of this unified voice. To be very frank, we call the ENVI rapporteur Jessica Polfjard and the EPP group and the shadows of all other groups, especially from the S&D group, to rethink and to change their draft reports or their tabled amendments. Don't rule and judge about the organic integrity against their own choice. Therefore, the IFOAM Organics Europe urges policymakers to support the maintenance of essential safeguards for biosafety and freedom of choice for producers, including the appropriate legal and technical framework, which is not currently the case in the Commission's proposal, namely full traceability for all NGTs and coexistence rules. Thank you.
Jan, for highlighting the concerns of the organic movement and especially our concerns related to the plan of a rapporteur, indeed, to delete the ban of NGTs in organic production, which is in the Commission's proposal. We will now hear from Bernard Lignon, the point of view of organic processors as well, on what will be needed from the point of view of the organic sector on how this proposal should be improved.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Good morning to everybody. As Jan just said, he was talking about traceability, and this point is something very important for us, because at present, the provision in the text relating to traceability and labeling are insufficient to guarantee a good level of transparency. And we need this transparency at every step of the supply chain, from the farmer to the consumer, in order to ensure that appropriate measures are taken to prevent unintentional utilization, and so that consumer can choose what he wants to eat, but he knows what he is buying. In addition, it is important for us that member states must have all legal means at their disposal to manage the coexistence rule, including the right to ban the cultivation of NTG on their territory. And for us, the detection and identification method should be compulsory for each type of NTG plant. And all these measures, all the cost of this economic measure should not be supported by the organic sector or the consumer. And we think that a system of strict liability, and or compensation fund to compensate farmers in the event of accidental presence should be put in place.
Thank you very much, Bernard, also for keeping your statement short. Indeed, what is key is traceability, not only at the level of a seed, which is important, but all producers all along the production chain needs to have information about the presence of NGTs or not in their products too. And member states indeed need to have a legal basis to take measures to ensure coexistence as well. And now we will hear from Angelika Hilbeck. Please, can you please explain to us what are the key points of this letter that was co-signed by more than 70 scientists, Angelika, and what you think of this whole debate?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for inviting me to this opportunity to explain why I signed this letter. So firstly, the letter, I've signed many letters in the last months and years, and I have been part of producing also statements. So I'd like to refer you as well to our more scientific elaborations on why we as a scientific organization have problems with these proposals and what the state of science is and the state of art in this field from our perspective, based on the science that we find in the scientific literature and that we do ourselves, because we're all active scientists in the field. So this letter, now this particular one that was just recently published, started out actually with a position that is not usually you start out as a scientist, and it explains how this approach and the process of how to push this regulations through is deeply, deeply troubling to us because it's fundamentally undemocratic. And you've heard it from different people before. There is a rush implied now to push this through because the people who rush this know exactly that they're operating against a majority of the peoples in Europe. There is very few issues in Europe where you find such a consistent, persistent, for decades, position and public opinion about genetic engineering than you find anywhere else. Okay, go and check that. And that is understood by the Commission, and it is deeply troublesome that the Commission doesn't take this as an order to accommodate people's wills, to respect the will of the people and work with the people. They see this, and it motivated them to come up with processes that open small windows of opportunity for them and then close them as rushed as possible in order to avoid to face majority views of people. So we find this, even as scientists, we find this deeply troublesome because we understand that the situation in the EU and the trust level of the peoples of Europe in what the EU does is deeply divided. And we believe that these kinds of actions of disrespecting people's majority positions and arrogantly pushing through a biased piece of regulation is going to further undermine the trust in the EU. And we all have worked with the EU for the last decades and have tried to make it a better place, a more democratic place, and bring diversity of views to the table. And our views of a large segment of scientists were just sweepingly excluded in a way and fashion that we have not seen in the 30 years of debating the issue with EU institutions. So that is one thing I wanted to put squarely on the table. We were part of the debates. We had meetings with commissions and various institutions. We did discuss them. They know our positions. We've delivered the science on them, and it was completely, fully, and wholly brushed away. They listened to one segment of the society community only, and it is those and that segment of the society or of the scientific community that has the biggest vested interest and stakes in this entire operation. So we find this approach and this system, the way they dealt with this, deeply troubling, and we haven't seen that in this extreme expression in the 30 years, at least, that I am firsthand in the middle of this debate. So from the science point, we have written many, many papers and dispelled and refuted the claims of safety and the claims of precision. This technology is neither safe nor precise. It is only called safe and precise if you focus on a highly isolated, individual, very small aspect of it, the targeted gene you want to change. You ignore the contextual system that in which the genes are embedded because they don't understand that context. We understand and bring forward science after science after science, explaining to them that it is this context of the entire organism, of the genetic network, of the metabolomic network that defines the phenotypic expression of every gene. This is swept away. The proposal they have made now is extreme in its phrasing, as it focuses only and exclusively on the traits they intend to manipulate and disregard completely these contextual factors that drive the expression of the phenotype and of the plant and the organism in the end, in conjunction with the environment. We find this highly troublesome, that it's possible that you can sweep the science that is backing that up away without consequence, that you can convince policymakers that this is something you should and ought to be doing. This makes it even less safe than transgenic technologies. It makes it more open for unintended effects that will sneak up on us, that we have no liability for, no traceability, no monitoring, no responsibility on the side of the developers if this proposal goes through as it is designed at this point. So we find this highly, highly troublesome, and that is why you see a lot of scientists coming forward and saying this is deeply unscientific what you do, on top of being deeply undemocratic.
Angelika, and the organic movement has one principle, which is called the principle of care, which is basically about believing in the precautionary principle. And that's why of the reasons why the organic movement in its vast majority believe that the use of NGTs is not compatible with organic production, like it was explained by Jan Plagge as well. So thank you also for clarifying that the reasons why, from a scientific point of view, such NGTs could not be assimilated to conventional breeding as well, because this is what we hear on the side of some members of the European Parliament too. So thank you for your statements. I would like now to open the floor to questions from journalists. So please raise your hand.